longtime client Michael. He's the owner of the property. He's done the renovations.
I didn't do any of the renovations, but
He hired people to do the renovations. Yeah, so talk to us about this deal. What made you buy it, and what were some of the decisions you decided to go for with this conversion?
sure, yeah. So the first time we ever walked through the property, I was definitely interested, but I think gained more interest when we were doing our walkthrough. So we're actually up here, and it might be hard to imagine when we're standing here, but there was a wall literally like from here, right? Like you can kind of see where it used to be, and that was the full size of the basement. And there was a narrow hallway and then 2 bedrooms.
The upper unit.
The upper, yeah. And the washroom was existing. The washroom's the only thing that's identical. But as we were walking through, we kind of realized that behind the walls, there was a lot of space that was essentially dead space. Yeah. Could be used as a small storage closet. But if we could increase the usable square footage, right, suddenly this potentially becomes a unit. And that's obviously a killer feature from a duplex conversion to a triplex conversion. So I kind of went back home, ran the numbers again, and was like, all right, if we can get 3 units up here, and not just 3, like a third, second bedroom, changes everything.
This unit is sick, by the way. It looks like phenomenal. Just you don't even feel like it's in a 1.5 story home, right? Like it full ceiling height. Yeah.
Yeah. So we actually wanted to do vaulted ceilings up here. I didn't quite have the budget to do it, but that was like an exciting potential.
Put some skylights.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess you've rented out the main floor.
Yep.
Least, but
October 1st.
October 1st. Okay. Some of the people were asking, how is the rental market? What is your what's it like trying to rent out properties right now?
Yeah, the answer to this definitely changes by like a month, I would say. But right now, I find the rents are healthy, the volume is slow, and like I guess that a similar move as like the purchasing market, but in the other direction. I find we're just waiting longer to get a good tenant, and like applications are a little bit slower. The changing of hands of units is just happening less frequent.
Yeah.
Why is like maybe a separate conversation. I don't even know, but I find it's just taking a little bit longer.
Okay. Yeah, so definitely it's not the same as what we're experiencing in Toronto, where things are, what I'm hearing is on fire, but we didn't experience that decline when COVID started.
Right.
Things here have been relatively stable, and even now they're relatively stable, so we'll have to see what comes. But it's good you got the main floor rented, and like these rents are prime rents for 2-bedroom units, like prime rents, right? So you bought in January.
Right.
That was the market has come down like 25% since the peak, right?
Yeah.
What's it like investing during this year?
Yeah, we closed during that time. We bought in December. I think it was, I can't remember how fast of a close it was. But yeah, anyways, the market it was definitely in a hotter time than it is now.
Yeah.
Honestly, like value buys, right? Like the numbers don't work, don't make an offer. And I always try to be pretty diligent about not getting pulled into the market.
Sure.
And I think the sort of metric that I use to track that, depending on how hot the market is how many offers are you making before one is accepted, and how far off of the purchase price is your offer. So I got beat a ton of times before we got this one, and kind of like stick to your numbers, and you build in, I think, your conservative buffers, let's call them, on what the cash flow of the property will be. And unless you really need that cash flow, it's essentially like, how long can I hold on to this property when and if something bad happens? Right? So do the values change? Do the interest rates go up? Right? Does something else happen that impacts my cash flow? And I think we had the ability to hold on this one.
I mean, looking at these numbers, like even with today's interest rate, the thing should cash flow a ton.
Yeah, and so when we ran these numbers, I think the rates were at like 2 and change at the time.
Yeah.
But we ran them at 4.5.
Okay.
So I went back and looked at the calculator when
Interesting.
We ran this at 4.5.
Okay, very good.
Yeah, the rents weren't as high.
Sure.
But
So that's also another interesting aspect about running these numbers. We run the numbers based on the rents like at that time, but then a project like this may take 6 months, sometimes 9 months, right? A bigger project. The rent at the end of that time can be significantly different than when you started. So that also sometimes, like some of our clients, we buy a deal, the cash flow is $500 on paper. Once all said and done, it ends up being like $1,000 because they were able to just get more rent, right? So, Michael, you and I have been working together for many years now, and now you work with our team member Ryan on this purchase and a few others. What's it been like working with us for the last last few years?
Yeah, you guys have been great. I think so. Ryan, especially on this project, right? Like, there's a photo which I can share of Ryan, like, literally waist deep up in the attic, and he was trying to figure out, like, can we make this work? There's like a photo of it's like I'm in the photo, he's in the photo, and someone else was like, this is like the lengths that Ryan will go to like make sure that it makes sense to buy. So I think that it's like one fun anecdote, but I think it's representative of and he's also been very helpful after the buy, right? And I think personally, it's like the knock that I have against some realtors is like the minute that the sale goes through, it's like you don't hear from them anymore. But I think you guys do a really good job following up and making sure that the project is going well and checking in. So
Awesome, good stuff. Yeah, any questions, you guys, for Michael?
Are there any restrictions on the number of bedrooms you can have in a house?
I don't think so.
in a total house, or like in a unit?
In the total house.
Yeah, I don't think so.
And this one is 6?
Yeah, this one's 6, right?
Yeah.
Two on
Two
each
per
level.
unit.
And I see some bedrooms with no closets, and that is okay?
So bedrooms with no closets. It could be because they're not finished yet. Like, are you referring up here or downstairs or
No, the entrance level.
on the main floor? Yeah. So the one, I think it's at the front. I can't remember. We're adding one too.
Okay.
I mentioned there's like a few things. This is the only one that's like finished, and ready to move in, I would say. But no, they should all have closets. Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't think, like, even if you don't have a closet, it's not a rule per se. I have a duplex where we didn't put a closet, and it was a narrow bedroom. We just assumed they'd bring furniture and it'd be fine, and we legalized it, no problem. So yeah, I would
Does it add value? I mean,
to add a closet.
yeah, or a standalone IKEA closet versus a.
I don't know about standalone, but I don't know if it adds value, but it adds convenience to the tenant, right? Like to have.
Yeah.
It's like the thing people look for when they
And I think
they
any
rent a
amenity
place.
you can offer, right?
Yeah.
Parking is a big one, and this definitely like changes by market, right? But parking, storage, right? Like a massive window,
Value add.
any value adds, right?
And is it like for a bedroom, you can only call bedroom when there's a closet, right? Practically.
I would still
From
call it
city's
to.
perspective, I think they probably
Yeah,
I thought they don't approve it as a bedroom. They call
yeah.
it storage.
They may call it an office or a den.
Ah, okay.
From a renting standpoint, I would just call it a bedroom. Like it,
Yeah.
I don't think it changes much if there's a closet or not.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
And for the AC,
Yeah. Do you have AC in this?
No, we're gonna have individual units.
Like a mini split?
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. So you have 3 hydrometers.
Yes.
So each unit pays their own
Each
hydro.
unit will have its own or has its own hydro. yeah.
Okay.
So we're
And
looking at about 60 amps per unit.
is it? Okay.
how long was the application process and the renovation?
For the permits,
Yes.
when you say application process, so the first one, so we're on the second one right now. The first one I believe was 4 weeks, which was actually a little bit longer than I expected, but things like change like crazy. right?
Yeah.
And then I think the second one was just beyond that, probably about 5. But also, right, like we were talking about at the last place, if you really want, there's the ability to apply for them at the beginning, but then you're incurring development fees, and it makes it less feasible, right? So
How much?
doing them one after the other makes sense.
Any rough idea of how much those are?
Ooh,
25
yeah,
ish.
I was gonna say
Oh,
30
so if you
something like
put
that.
it together, it's gonna incur like 25,000.
Yeah.
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 So the carrying cost of 5 weeks.
So the
is
carrying
less
costs
than
are
that.
less.
Way less than
Exactly.
that, so.
Carrying
We've-
costs. And then
We've
missing
never had
permits.
someone choose to pay a development charge.
So what's the development cost? Can you help me understand that $25,000?
If you apply for both additional units at the same time,
Okay.
one of the 2 units will have development charges.
Okay.
If you do them separately, you don't have to pay development charge.
That makes sense.
So it just takes a bit longer.
Right.
And
Is it
compare.
just in Welland, or sorry, is it just in Welland, or it's kind of like everywhere?
Like even Welland, they were trying to actually charge us for the 3rd unit before, but it seems we're not paying it for the 3rd unit. It was a big deal when the chief building official tried to put it on, and then our architect kind of fought them back, and they went back and forth. But as of right now, we're not paying. So usually in most cities, you will pay a development charge for anything more than 1 additional unit, because you're doing a triplex in most cities. You're doing a 4plex, and then you pay development charges on every unit, and that's both the city and the municipal, so the region, right? So
So comparing it to the last house, this allows tandem parking, right? Just one line.
Correct. Yeah, we added one. You probably saw like a
Yeah.
fresh asphalt there in the front. Yeah, just for the tenants, obviously. But I can't remember what was included on
The
the
permit
drawing. I
drawings
think-
had front to back, I think.
Yeah, and I think it was front to back, and even it went all the way to the garage.
Yeah.
Which
Okay.
technically counts if you want to use it that way.
Because the traffic from the one renting this top portion would be
Would be
a
in the way.
portion of the driveway, right?
100%.
Yeah.
Right. So do you have to be specific on this is the
This definitely changes by municipality, right? Like, is it tandem? Is it side by side?
Yeah.
So we've talked about that before. But then there's also like some standards you meet, like I would say non-safety standards you meet just like to make sure that you meet the city's requirements.
Right.
And then there are some standards I think that as an investor you want to exceed,
just
specifically
like the big window you have on the basement.
right. Specifically because you want the tenants to enjoy it, right? You want to get those market rents, and I would say if you can come across a property where you can have 3 wide, right, on purpose,
That's beautiful.
you don't need to worry about shifting vehicles, right?
Yeah, I think so. Welland allows you to even park on the street overnight. So practically, some of the tenants are just going to park on the street, and just winter time when snow plows come through, they'll park on the driveway. Usually, that at least some of them will do that, right? So, it's. I used to live in Mississauga, and we lived in a condo with my family, and it sucked because we didn't have enough parking. I park on the street. Every week, I was getting 2 to 3 tickets, and it's like brutal. But smaller towns, they don't care. They just let you park on the street, and it's good. So. Yeah.
I guess that's where the washer and dryer go.
Right? They're actually right behind you there.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you open that door, that's the washer and dryer.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, it's already there. How much did those cost you? Because I feel like appliances now are through the flipping roof.
Yeah, they've gone up a little bit. I can't remember the price on this stuff.
So the 250K estimate for included with your purchase, does it include the completion of all the 3 units?
Yes, those are the renovation costs. Yeah.
The main floor was pretty good though. The kitchen.
Yeah, the only thing we really did on the main, I say only thing, and then we always like scope treat different things, but we did the flooring. We added the 2 bedrooms, so that was just like one basically massive open space on the main
that's
floor
fine.
previously.
Right.
The washroom was already there, and then the back, which is sort of right at the door where you came in, that used to come into the main floor.
Right.
So we basically put 2 fire rated walls and separated the 3 units so that they could all have their own entrance.
Okay.
Yeah.
And would you say that the bigger portion of that 250 is from this dormer?
Yeah, the dormer was definitely a big portion of that. And that wasn't something I had ever had experience with. And I thought, aside from making this a viable project, it was actually something new that I could kind of sink my teeth into as an investor, right? So I asked a million questions. I was like on site as they're like breaking the roof open just to like learn. So one of the things I didn't know is on this roof they had, the previous owners had a 3rd, it could have been even a 4th layer of asphalt.
Oh my god, really?
Yeah. Which like adds weight over time. Anyways, long story short, yeah, that was a big portion.
So the roof is redone on this portion?
Yep.
Okay. So they took everything out and did you redo the roof on the other side or
Yeah,
might as well
you're
get
up,
it done?
you're up, you're up.
Yeah.
Just so we have an idea, how much extra cost did it actually you incurred? Just
Yeah, what was the dormer portion, do you know?
Yeah, I want to say the dormer was somewhere between 50 and 60.
Okay.
It depends on the linear footage, right? So technically, this house actually already has a dormer off the back. I didn't install it; it was here previously, but it was just for the washroom, right? So that's why if you're standing on somewhere where it's not the washroom, you don't have that useful space. So I went on the back, and this is kind of how we got an idea of how wide the dormer has to be. Is we stood at the front, and we stood at the back, and we decided, right? So this is where it begins, as you can tell, right?
Yeah.
And then if you go into that bedroom, you can see where it ends, and that becomes like the closet for that room.
So given the chance you buy another 1.5 story, would you do
And
this
do a
again?
dormer? Yeah, so honestly,
Because now I'm starting to think that my eyes now is on.
So Mike-
so I understand that, and I think that way as well. However, I will say, when you get into developments with pieces this big, the mistakes are also that big, right? So like, I used to get nervous at $200-300 mistakes on cosmetic renovations, right? And now I know what to expect because it's not an if we'll come across something, it's like a when we'll come across something. And this was one of those somethings, right? So as an example on this property, the main floor, as you guys could see when you were there, was like wide open, right? I didn't open that up. That was open before we got there. As a matter of fact, I kind of closed it by adding some walls. But the previous owners did that, and they didn't properly support it in the basement. So there's an old video of this place, and it's like a bunch of 2x4s essentially that are like vertical. So so this was a cost that I didn't realize up front, and when the inspector came through, we figured it out, and I was a few thousand deep into adding proper support posts. So I think the shorter answer to your question is yes, if you have the experience and understand how to solve those problems.
Yeah. So, I mean, Michael, you own another property on this same street
Yeah, 2 doors that way.
that is more similar to Carlos' property, right? It's a 2-basement
Yeah.
with a main floor unit.
Yeah.
So I guess now you're doing that renovation. It's still early on. Between the two, which would you rather?
Yeah, it honestly depends. Like how this is probably goes towards your question, right? Like some are more cookie cutter than others, and I use the term cookie cutter very loosely. Right? Like on a conversion project, it's like that one doesn't have a dormer to deal with,
Yeah.
so the complexity starts to go away. I would say if it has a completely unfinished basement, right, you can see a lot of the walls in Carlos' project. A lot of the walls in there you can see, right? That reduces the amount of potential things that you're going to find when you start breaking things down.
Yeah.
So if I'm looking for a simpler project, I would say that's probably one compared to this.
Yeah, this one is just sick because you have 2-bedroom units, like all 3 of them, and 2 are above grade to get like premium rents, right? But yeah, both work. I would start with something like Carlos' property though. Like I would. This, yeah, it's just a bit of a bigger project to me. Yeah.
Just one. So all 3 units are exempt from rent control?
No, the main floor unit was a unit
Original.
previously.
Yeah.
It's anything that is not previously used as residential space.
Yeah.
So when you bring in, say, new tenant to this unit,
No,
like, do you tell them upfront, it's no longer, it's not under rent control? Or?
It may be good to
So-
let them know.
Yeah, I would say you include it in the lease and like be upfront with them. And
Yeah.
if that's not something they're okay with,
Yeah, you don't want
probably
to
shouldn't have them as a
surprise
tenant.
them. You don't want to surprise them after a year.
Exactly,
Rent is
100%.
going up $200.
100%.
Yeah. Yeah, it's probably good to let them know.
Quick question.
Yeah.
Are you doing your own property management or are you hiring someone else?
So I'm a mix at this point. I've used a few different property management companies, had good and bad experiences. I have one that I'm working with right now that I'm pretty happy with, and as I gain more properties, they're typically going under that property management company. And I have a couple that I've managed for a long time. I have really good relationships with the tenants, and so I'm sort of keeping them that way until they turn over, and then slowly add them into a property management company.
Koukun, how much percentage would that cost usually for a property manager?
Usually it's what 8% plus HST, and they charge a month's rent to find you a tenant.
Yeah, my experience with them is like 7 to 9, and
Yeah.
and the higher end, there's usually less frills, like
Yeah.
less other things. that they
Sometimes you
charge
pay
for.
like for like a quarterly inspection or every 6 months for them to come
Yeah.
take a look, right?
Yeah.
So those things also.
Yeah.
So was there a technical reason this space was left out from the dormer, like this rectangular?
I mean, you do need to leave a foot or two at the end. You can't.
Yeah,
Go
it was
all
a
the-
structural thing. mostly.
Structural, yeah, correct.
But this dormer is way bigger than the one. So the one in the back, there's a dormer there just for the bathroom, right?
Exactly, yeah.
But they only made it. Probably it's way cheaper just to to do that.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, you pay by the linear foot this way, right? Oh, I mean, and how deep it is, right? So the square footage is costly.
So this was the minimum required for the structural integrity, that's why? this
Yeah, I believe we tried to
Probably.
maximize it as much as we could.
Correct.
Yeah.
And originally it was electric heating and you decided to keep it that way, or
It's a boiler, right?
what's the boiler?
Yeah. So it's a hot water radiant system.
I thought the boiler, they have a different kind of pipes going on.
just different
That's the
vents.
older one. This is
Yeah, they
Yeah.
look similar, but they're just different radiators.
yeah.
Yeah.
Is it more economical to keep it this way than to actually convert it to forced air?
It may be
Depends if you have the space too, right?
Yeah.
Because forced air, then you need right,
ductwork.
right. You need all your ductwork. and
This is great for sound separation because there's no airflow in ducts between the units. So your soundproofing is complete. There's no air transfer. So yeah.
The metal vents.
Yeah, that's right. Because most of the sound transfers through the vents. Because you do all your soundproofing and then there's like air flowing.
Yeah, and you can hear the conversation right on the.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. No, I
And for the heating, like you don't need to have the, what do they call it? They have a one inflow and there is an outflow. You don't need to have that.
So this is just hot water going through the pipes, right? Yeah, I mean there is an inflow and an outflow. It circulates, right? But you're talking about air circulation. If you're building a new built house with a radiant system, you would have like the what is it called? The air. Yeah, the air exchanger, right? But you don't do stuff like that on these type of projects.
So I'm new to Canada actually. I've just been here for 2 years, and I wanted to learn more about investing, and I wanted to learn about cash flow positive properties. Essentially, I saw a couple of people who invested, but they could not manage a cash flow positive property. And I saw Koukun on YouTube, really liked his content, very knowledge based, quite rich content he has on YouTube. So I thought I'll come here down to Welland, I'll meet him and see some properties and what kind of work they're doing. Yeah, so for this one specifically, I learned about that dorm extension. That was very interesting. I did not know that a 1.5 stories of a house can be converted into a proper 2-story. That was very interesting. I got to learn about the cost involved in that kind of a conversion and how the numbers make sense. And the document which was given to us, it breaks down all the numbers, which is very interesting. So everything is very clear, how much money is required upfront, how much cash flow it will make every month, annually. So that's very helpful.